There's been a particular game that I've been wanting to talk about for quite a long time, and I think now might be the perfect opportunity. Back in the mid-2000s, the Game Boy Advance was quite the technical marvel for its time, finally being able to produce 16-bit graphics in a full range of color on a portable Nintendo console. For all intents and purposes, it was a portable SNES, but that comparison doesn't quite stick when you realize there weren't a lot of standout role-playing games for the little handheld that could. Sure, you got your Pokemon and a few tactical RPGs and, this masterpiece if you lived in Japan, but aside from some ports, you never really had any tried-and-true classic JRPGs on the thing. That is until Camelot, a company most primarily known for the Mario sports franchises, would break through with one of my favorite games of all time, Golden Sun. For those of you joining us after Isaac's recent announcement into Smash Ultimate, hello, welcome. There's tea and cookies for you on the counter. Grab a seat and you'll be right at home. You might be asking yourself a few questions. Who the fuck is this blonde anime bitch? Why should I care about him? And how did Sakurai get away with putting another damn Fire Emblem character into this game? My response to those questions being, sit down, I'm about to edumacate you, and shut the fuck up. What? I'm sorry, hang on, I need to take this call. What do you mean he's not in the game? Assist trophy? What the fuck are you talking about? What about the leaks? They were fake? Oh no, now I look like a fucking asshole! And I had all these really great jokes planned and everything. In any case, despite the relevancy of this video going out the fucking window, you might be wondering what all the hubbub was about regarding Isaac and why so many people care about him. This game isn't exactly easy to get a hold of nowadays, and unless you're willing to use some less than legal means, the Wii U Virtual Console is the only realistic place to get a hold of this game, which isn't exactly accessible for everybody. But don't worry, that's what I'm here for. This video is going to be a bit different of an affair from the rest of my trash. Normally I'd tell you that if you haven't extensively played the game beforehand, maybe stay as far away as possible from my videos and avoid them like the fucking plague. But I'm aware that Golden Sun isn't exactly the most popular game series in the world, so I'm hoping that this video could inspire at least a few people to get themselves interested enough to try it out. This video is going to be both a story recap and an overall review of the game. I'm mostly going to be talking about the narrative and interject with my thoughts about the gameplay, world building, music, etc. whenever they become relevant. I do want to put a big emphasis that there will be story spoilers throughout the video, but in all fairness, this game's over a decade old already, and it's not like there's much to spoil anyway. The narrative's pretty bare bones. Regardless, I'll still give you a quick heads up when we start getting into the big dick plot points towards the end, so don't say Uncle Hake's never did anything for you. So with all that out of the way, let's finally talk a bit about Golden Sun. Our tale begins on the night of disaster. Your mother drags you out of your bed and tells you to get the fuck out because everything's going to tits. Everyone in our hometown of Vale is evacuating because Mount Aleph, the active volcano with which our town is situated around, is beginning to erupt. We are instructed to go wait inside the town plaza, but of course things can't be that easy, so we have to take a roundabout route. Along the way, we meet up with Isaac's childhood friend, Garrett, aka the Very Good Boy, who's struggling to escape as he's trying to drag along everything that he owns with him, bless his idiot soul. Together we make it to where Isaac's parents are trying to help out the other townsfolk. They send us off to go get more help as another childhood friend, Felix, has seemed to gotten himself stuck in the river, and no one can be bothered to do anything themselves. We go ahead and do that, but our efforts are in vain as the debris from the eruption causes this gigantic boulder to fall and take the lives of Felix, his parents, and your father. Not being emotionally destroyed by this, since silent protagonists are forbidden to show any emotion at all, Isaac goes back to help, but are interrupted by these two buffoons who are totally not the villains of the game. They knock us out, and the game can begin proper. 3 years have passed since that incident. Isaac, Garrett, and the late Felix's sister Jenna have all been training in the art of synergy, this game's equivalent of magic in that time. Synergy allows one to harness the power of the elements and use them at their disposal, ranging from the ability to move small objects, create gusts of wind, freeze small pools of water. It's a game mechanic, you get the idea. Everybody in the village of Vale learns magic to protect the secrets hidden within Sol Sanctum, which is located within Mount Aleph. Everything in this world is composed of the 4 elements: earth, fire, air, and water, represented in this game by the celestial bodies of Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Mercury respectively.
which is a bit of an odd choice since I'm pretty sure that Mercury is the furthest thing from wet and cold that you can get. The secrets to unlock these elements are said to be hidden within Sol Sanctum in the form of the elemental stars. All of this we are taught by Kraden, a visiting scholar from an outside city, whom the three have been studying under. No one, not even the citizens of Vales, are permitted to enter Sol Sanctum so that its secrets may stay hidden, but after a conversation with the dynamic duo who reveal their names to be Saturos and Menardi, Kraden is convinced that we need to personally investigate Sol Sanctum since it may have been compromised by the two. But instead of warning the village of these two thieves, Kraden suggests that we go and sneak inside ourselves because he's not sure if what they said is true? Like, maybe I'm missing a piece of the puzzle here, but it seems like instead of doing the rational thing, Kraden wants to risk the balance of the world out of his own curiosity. Regardless, we sneak into Sol Sanctum, which serves as the tutorial dungeon of the game, and as we get past all of the traps and puzzles, we find the inner depths of the sanctum where the 4 elemental stars lie hidden. Kraden, barely holding back his orgasm, wishes to study the power of the stars, so he instructs us to go and fetch them so that nothing can possibly go wrong. But amidst your collecting... Oh no! Honestly, nobody could have foreseen this happening. Saturos and Menardi, accompanied by this fucking Hot Topic edgelord over here, have taken Kraden and Jenna hostage and offer their lives in exchange for the elemental stars. Naturally, Kraden doubts that they'll be unharmed in this exchange, so as a guarantee, Mr. Maskboy over here is instructed to reveal his identity. It's you! I'm sorry, who are you again? Felix is somehow alive and is working alongside the villains, but I have to ask here why have the mask in the first place if they were just gonna reveal his identity immediately. Felix gets mentioned a lot throughout the game, even after this point, and I have to wonder if the writers had intended for you to have a bigger connection to him than what was just shown in the prologue. Like, as it just stands right now, I don't have any connection to this guy. I have no reason to care about him, but whatever, he's a villain now. Regardless, Garrett, the good boy that he is, if not a little brash, tries to do the right thing by handing over the MacGuffins in order to protect his friend. Ugh, and then there's this guy. Anyone else? Any more clowns want to join the circus of freaks? He introduces himself as Alex and instructs us that if we want to keep our friends unharmed, we must fetch him the last star. But as we do, the chamber begins to collapse. Felix and friends decide to bail with their lives intact and take Jenna and Kraden hostage, thinking that if we survive, we would exchange the Mars star for their safety. Thankfully, we are interrupted by another giant boulder. Starting to see the pattern? But this one can talk, so, it's all good in the hood. It's known as the Wise One, probably the closest thing that this universe has to a god. It does a little magic trick on the Mars star to let us know that the others have escaped and sends us out safely. Once we get back to the village and recap them on the terrible shit we did, the Wise One sends us another message.
Yeah, you really fucked up big time. Go get my shit back.
But I don't wanna.
Alright, fuck the world, I guess. See if I care.
Damn, call me on my bluff. We get sent on a mission to retrieve the missing elemental stars and go save Jenna and Kraden. The Wise One warns us that if the stars are used to reignite the 4 elemental lighthouses, the true power of synergy will be unleashed upon the world. Which is a bad thing, I think? We kinda just have to take that warning at face value. I'm pretty sure you'd feel the same way if a talking rock got on your ass for stealing its shit. Once that's said and done, we finally get sent out into the world and our journey can begin. Rejoice as the tutorial hell is finally ended. Huzzah, you can finally play the fucking game. Yeah, one very valid criticism I often hear about this game is that it's very front-heavy with the dialogue. I'm not gonna disagree with this. If you don't particularly enjoy lore-dump cutscenes that can go on for up to 10 minutes at a time, maybe this isn't the game for you. I don't particularly mind them myself, but on repeat playthroughs, they can definitely be draining. It kind of feels like to me that the dialogue in this game was something that was written out with the intention of being read vocally as opposed to just text, but, I don't have any evidence for that. Anyway, our main objective for the game has been set, but like any good JRPG, there's going to be a good fortune of distractions and shenanigans along the way. The first of which, taking no time at all to cockblock you in your tracks, is this little cunt. Aw, but he's cute, so I'll let it slide. This chubby little Pokemon is a Djinn, one of the many collectibles you'll be finding throughout your journey. I'll go into a little more detail about exactly what the Djinn do for you once they become a bit more relevant, but I'll say for now that they are by far and large the most important things to be looking out for along your adventure. They influence your stats, magic, etc., in many more ways than either your equipment or your levels, so if you happen to find one, be sure to do whatever it takes to get its attention. After that, our first destination in our journey brings us to the neighboring village of Vault. The villagers tell you there that they've had their own share of thieves to deal with, taking things including a statue at the town shrine, the mayor's family urn, and a precious possession of a young man named Ivan. When you approach him, he shows that he also has the ability to use synergy, which again is a very rare occurrence outside the village of Vale, as well as the ability to read minds. Fucking rude, consent is key, young man. Without having to explain your entire life story to him, thank God, he understands that you have a very big destiny ahead of you, and he agrees to help you out in exchange for helping him find his missing shaman's rod. After doing so, he tries to leave the group in order to deliver it back to his master, a wealthy merchant by the name of Hammett, but he cannot do so as the village that he's taking refuge in is locked up tight, something to keep in mind for later, so he permanently joins your party since he's fucking useless on his own. After a bit more exploring, you have the first possibility of a split path along your journey. You can help out the towns of Biblin and Coloma, whose villagers have been cursed to turn into trees, or head north to the village of Emil, where the first lighthouse is located. You'll have to do both eventually, and the forest is easily more balanced to be taken on first, but I'm gonna head north first as it's more relevant to the main story, and you won't be able to progress past Coloma until after you've completed the lighthouse anyway, so it saves us on time. Once you get to Emil, you learn that the village has been plagued by disease, and only by the help of a young healer named Mia have they been able to fight it. After being directed to where she's headed next, you finally find her, as well as the objects of all my preteen fantasies. Please sit on my face. Your introduction is cut short, however, as a large flash of light protruding from Mercury Lighthouse causes her to flee in a panic. Following in pursuit, she seems to be stuck at the entrance as an obstacle blocks her way. Being the fine gentlemen that we are, we help her out here, only to find that she seems to be aware of our synergy. Doing some mental arithmetic, we conclude that she is also an adept, one of the last few members of the Mercury clan, a family who has been sworn to protect the Mercury Lighthouse. Sound familiar? She and a young man named Alex are the only remaining members of the clan, and while that might raise a few alarms, all that I can think about is how important it is that this woman reproduces, preferably with me, thank you very much. After lending some more assistance, she finally decides to join our party, completing the quartet. It seems a bit early to say so, but yes, we have finally completed our final party setup for the game. Strange as that we're not even halfway through, but hey, I'm not complaining. With Mia's help, we can make it to the top of the lighthouse, only to find out that we are too late. It has already been lit, fam. We catch Satoros and Minardi as they're about to leave, and see that Jenna, Creighton, and Felix are alive and well, and are still being held captive. Satoros, being the cocky twit he is, decides to take on all four of us by himself, while the rest make their escape. However, he fails to take into consideration the power of the newly lit Mercury beacon, which is signified by the element of water. Satoros is a fire-based adept, meaning that he's weakened during our fight with him. Despite this, he manages to put up a hell of one. He's a genuine difficulty spike, and I'm sure he's the cause of much frustration to first-time players. Once he's defeated, Alex finally decides to make his appearance. To Mia's dismay, Alex has betrayed his clan, assisting our foes in climbing the Mercury Lighthouse. As for why he didn't assist Satoros in his fight, he explains that he simply wanted to observe and gauge our strength. He elaborates, saying not only that Satoros wouldn't have let him help even if he wanted, and that he underestimated the power of the lighthouse in thinking that Satoros was more than strong enough to take us on his own. Though we know that this is all a bold lie. All a part of his big ruse, our conversation was simply a stall for time for Satoros to recover his strength and make their escape. Or he could have just killed us there, but whatever. Alex is fully aware of the power of the lighthouses and the elemental stars. He shows right here that he's far more knowledgeable and more powerful than either of the others, but he chooses not to fight. Keep this character trait in mind as it becomes crucial for something that I'll bring up in part 2. For now, he escapes with Satoros barely clinging on to his life, but not before 1, commenting on how strong we become in such a short time, and 2, politely asking if we still hold the Mars star. Say yes, and he thanks you for your honesty. He clearly knew even before he asked. After all of that, Mia comments that with the lighthouse reignited, healing waters flow down, which can provide medicine for the sick village of Emil, and as Alex is partially her responsibility, she cements her place in our party. The next big chunk of our journey has us pursuing Felix and his crew around the world, seeing new cultures, helping out those in need, and gaining new powers along the way. The unfortunate thing about this big section of the game, which is probably going to be at least 50% of your entire playtime, is the fact that these segments are, for lack of better term,
Filler.
Aside from developing a specific character's backstory, which I'm gonna hold off on for a little bit later in the video, You don't really get much in the way of major story progress, just some smaller plot threads that all resolve themselves very quickly and then fuck off for the rest of the game. You never see Felix or his band of merry misfits until the end of the game. You only hear bits and snippets about their progress, always a step behind their path of destruction. So instead of boring you with all the details, I'm going to use this chance to talk about the other aspects of the game that I've neglected up until this point. Though some notable things you will encounter during this portion include Kung Fu, Donkey Kong, One Piece, sweaty gamer girls, monkey culture, log rolling, and existential dread.
I didn't mind being a tree. Water never tasted
Nobody
so
yells
good.
at
you when you're a tree.
Everyone
Nobody
turned
tells
into
you to
trees
go to
because
bed
of my
early
axe.
either.
I will never use my axe
gives you lots
again.
of
time to think.
When I was a tree,
Still a
I
tree.
learned to appreciate the sun. If we were all trees, there'd be no more wars. 'Cause we'd be trees.
The graphics in this game are an absolute joy, some of the best sprite work I've ever seen, let alone on the GBA, and it's even more of an ecstasy trip if you have a chance to see them in their native resolution. I do apologize as, due to the nature of recording games in awkward resolution, 3x2 can suck my dick. Some of the fancier animations may come out a bit fuzzy in this video, nothing I can really do about that. That's gonna be one Gomen aside from me. But regardless, the game still looks incredible. Every attack has a weight and power put into their animations that just make it an absolute blast to watch how it all plays out. I'm a huge sucker for fancy animations for magic attacks in games, so it's no surprise that the entire game is just stroking my cock the entire way through. The music in this game is also phenomenal. Every piece matches the mood of what you're doing in the game, and it never gets too repetitive. Aside from the battle themes and the world map, no track is used more than 2 or 3 times in the whole game, so they never drag on more than they need to. Motoi Sakuraba was the composer for this game, and he's got quite the resume, especially regarding game soundtracks. Included in the list of series he's worked on is Star Ocean, the Tales of series, Baten Kaitos, Eternal Sonata, Dark Souls, which actually took me by surprise, I didn't know that one until now, and, oh hey, would you look at that? Oh. As far as the gameplay, the game is split up into 2 segments, exploration and combat. When traveling through towns and dungeons, you have access to a wide variety of field synergies that allow you to solve various puzzles and interact with the world in interesting ways. These puzzles are oftentimes simple, sure, it usually boils down to associating a type of object with a certain power and just figuring out where or when to use it, but the feeling of the role your characters play in the world always protrudes through it. You're constantly reminded that your party consists of magical warriors, that you have fantastic abilities that normal people can't even fathom. And for the combat, I'm sure you could have guessed by now, but there's a big elephant in the room that I can't simply talk around. Now I know this combat style is a big point of contention for a lot of people in today's age, but you gotta remember, this was the standard for story-heavy games in 2001. And I think, for what it's worth, the combat is engaging and well-paced enough to get by on. Fancy animations are nice and all, but encounters outside of boss fights usually never last more than 2 turns, and the game gives you plenty of options to avoid them altogether. As for how combat works at the mechanical level, I'll try to give the quickest rundown possible while still covering all the bases. You choose a command for each party member at the beginning of a round, and then each actor in play executes their commands in the order of their speed stat. Attacks in this game are usually a lot more than just a damage type and a single enemy. Instead of just dealing critical hits, oftentimes your basic attack will have an unleash effect depending on the weapon that you have equipped. These unleash attacks, which on top of adding extra damage when they come out, can have a variety of secondary effects added to them, as well as that flashy animation. Magic attacks that hit multiple enemies function as an AoE effect, where you select the target that will be getting the largest portion of the attack, and the 2 to 4 enemies surrounding that foe will be getting a slightly weaker version of that damage, as well as whatever other effects the attack has. You have your share of buffs and status ailments, which are actually somewhat useful throughout the entire game. There is almost no enemies, even bosses, that are completely immune to every status, and for some they get completely shut down by them. But all of this gets turned on its head when you throw the curveball that is the Jin system into this equation. I'll repeat myself here. You have your equipment, and you can grind out levels if you really want to get stronger, but none of that matters when you've got these cute fuckers on your side. When you collect a Jin, whether it be as a reward for a side quest, or finding one in the wild, or just beating one within an inch of its life, it gets equipped to a character, and that character gets a few stat changes, as well as the possibility of a class change, depending on the element of the Jin and the amount of that element that they have. As far as class roles go, your party starts out pretty simple and basic. Isaac is an Earth Adept, and he functions as a warrior, with a few healing spells on the side. Garrett specializes in fire, and is your paladin. He has high health, but very slow and middling strength in both physical and magic attacks. Ivan is your wind-based black mage. He has strong magic, high speed, but he's pretty shit everywhere else. And Mia is your watery healer, with some strong magic attacks as well. But that's simply how these characters function in their base elements. Now you can totally just stack Jin onto your characters by association of their natural element, and believe me, that is more than a viable way to play the game, but you do have the option of throwing any kind of combination into the mix, and trust me, it gets insane. Throw some Fire Jin onto Isaac, and he starts focusing on magic attacks based off his strength stat. His attacks become insanely powerful, throwing chunks of molten earth at his foes, but at the cost of his defenses and MP. Specialize Mia in some wind elements, and she becomes a perfect red mage, casting thunderstorms, throwing chunks of ice, and healing your entire party. 3 element classes also exist, but you don't get access to much of them until later portions of the game, but some notable examples include the ninja, samurai, and medium classes. There's so many options for you to experiment with, and we're not even done yet, as the summon system adds a very important dynamic into all of this. When you use a Jin's unique effect in battle, you can do a whole assortment of fun stuff. Powerful buffs, stunning foes, reviving party members, etc. When you do so, that Jin goes on standby. While on standby, the Jin is effectively unequipped. You don't get the stat bonus from it, and it takes away from whatever class tree you have. However, standby Jin are used as currency for summons, which are by far the biggest and most powerful, awe-inducing spectacles the game has to offer. While they take a while to set up, summons are insane, and they blast the entire enemy team with tons of damage. However, after using a summon, the standby Jin go on recovery, and you'll slowly get them back onto your characters over the course of a few turns, so use them wisely as you'll be crippling your defenses while they recover. You can also put Jin on standby or set them outside of battle if you simply want to use their effects at the start of a fight, which leads me to one of the more unsavory things I don't like about this game. While, yes, you do have this crazy amount of customization and loads of fun things you can do to set up your team and take on whatever dangerous foe comes your way, the game is really easy. Like, even without the cheesiest strategies of summon rushing or alternating damage reducing Jin, the game is a cakewalk. Yeah, there's a few standout boss fights and some optional side content that brings up the challenge just a little bit, but even on a first-timers playthrough, it's totally possible that you'll never even get a single party member down, let alone a game over. Just hit the dudes with the strongest moves you have and heal when the hurdy meter goes red and you'll get by. There's no difficulty option either, aside from some challenge runs you can set up, so if the chance ever does come around to see this game get a remake, that's definitely something at the top of my most wanted list. Thankfully, the ROM hacking community for these games is very strong. There's a bunch of community-made hacks for the game, which both addresses the difficulty issue and sometimes even completely revamp the entire combat system. Check them out if you ever want to replay these games with a new twist. The last thing I wanted to talk about here is what I believe to be the game's biggest strength in its world building. You might have noticed that in some of the games I've talked about so far that I'm a big lore fan, and this game scratches that itch like you wouldn't believe. Golden Sun puts the role back into role-playing game, and if you're the kind of person who likes to take their time, experiment with classes, talk to all the NPCs, and listen to the stories outside of what happens in the main plot, I think you'll enjoy this game much more than those who don't. I'm gonna go over a few of these stories a bit later in the video just to show you what I mean, but as for right now, we don't exactly have all the pieces in play yet. On top of that, because you have the ability to read minds, every single NPC has additional dialogue. Every area feels fully lived in and personalized, and you'll occasionally need to squeeze out every bit of info you can in order to find out where to go to progress, or simply have the proper context to understand the motive behind some of the game's important figures. Everything in this game is, well, serviceable for what it tries to do, which is why I think the game is as popular as it is, but not as big as it could have been. Every aspect about the game gets across what it needs to, and does it well enough to be memorable, but not well enough to come out on top of anything. It's a bit of a shame, but it's gonna be, okay, because this is one of those parts where I had that really good joke about Isaac being in Smash Brothers, but, yeah.
Our story finally picks up again once we hitch a boat ride into the city of Tolby, the homeland of our old friend Kraden. Maybe city isn't exactly the right word here. Tolby sets itself up as more of a Roman Empire, Colosseum and everything. Tolby is pretty much the capital of this entire chunk of the world, and included in their rule is a city known as Lalivero. That's it, that's the one. From this town, a young girl named Sheba is being held captive as a hostage in exchange for the cooperation of the city in some sort of construction project. As of what, we are not sure yet. If you try to talk to her, her only concern is when the yearly event known as Colosso is going to end, as there's something good for her in its conclusion. Note that if you try to mind read her, she takes notice before doubting herself, so you know she's not going to be important to the story at all. More pertinent to our current situation is that when we arrive, the locals find themselves distraught as their ruler, Babby, seems to have gone missing. Overhearing that he's been spotted recently heading into a nearby cave, we go to seek him out, only to find that an invisible figure has fallen in our way. The strange figure requests our help as they need something from the deepest point in the cavern and gives us the knowledge to reach that point. Once we've done so, the shadow reveals itself. It's you! I'm sorry, who are you again? The invisible figure was Babby, big fucking surprise, who expresses his joy that we used our synergy to save his life, and that he's finally found the Lemurians that he's waited so long to meet. To which we respond, "Come again, what the fuck did you just call me?" Babby has both a reward and another request for us, but before we can finish exchanging words, his guards show up and explain that the Colosso is about to begin, and that Babby's presence is needed immediately. As one of our rewards for helping him out, as well as a chance to see our synergy in action, Babby recommends that we join the Colosso ourselves, and puts us at the top of the entry list as his special hand-picked warrior. The Colosso is a real highlight moment of the game, a gauntlet of skill and strategy, outmaneuvering and overpowering your opponent in a true test of wit, and we cheat the entire time. I mean, what do you expect? The whole point of our entry is to show off our overpowered magic psychic bullshit. After wiping the fucking floor with these chumps, we reconvene with Babby, who shares with us the secret to both his empire and his exceedingly long lifespan. Over 100 years ago, while traveling overseas with a merchant thief named Loompa, a great flood struck the world. Amidst this flood, they landed within a hidden civilization in the middle of the ocean, a city both shrouded by thick fog and strong currents. This land, known as Lemuria, was composed entirely of powerful adepts who wished to protect the world from the power of their synergy. During his short stay here, Babby learned a small portion of synergy and took with him a potion of the mystical waters that flowed here, which has the ability to significantly slow the process of aging. With both of these gifts in hand, Babby became wealthy enough to rule an entire empire. He explains the reason why he needed our help in the first place, the reason why he is telling us all of this, and the reason why he founded the nation of Tolby in the first place is that this potion is running out. Babby has a strong desire to find Lemuria once again. For what purpose, we're really not sure. Babby has a very sinister aura surrounding him. It's possible that his motive could simply just be wanting to live longer, or perhaps even expose the secrets of Lemuria to the whole world. It's never really expanded upon. Regardless, he explains that in Lalivero, located nearby our objective in Venus Lighthouse, Babby is building a lighthouse of his very own. Babby believed that with a tall enough building and a strong enough light, his sailors would be able to keep their bearings in the deep fog surrounding Lemuria, but alas, no ship has ever made it back there. He now thinks that only a Lemurian ship could sail through those waters, so his final request for us is to seek out Lemuria at some point along our journey. Babby promises to lend us such a vessel, believing that only an adept could helm one. He was able to pilot said ship as, again, he explains that he had learned some synergy during his stay there, but those days are long behind him. We will be needing a boat at some point to reach the other lighthouses anyway, so our goals do intermingle. He allows us to go off towards Lalivero so that we may take care of our own business first, but not before sending one of his lackeys with us to oversee our progress. There are a few distractions along the way, as well as a few pieces of optional side content for you to seek out, but before getting into the endgame, there's one more piece of the story that I'd like to quickly go over, and that involves the story surrounding our little boy Ivan over here. While not much of it is technically part of the main story, Ivan is really the only party member that gets any kind of development past his introduction, so I'd like to quickly glance over it as it does lead up to something eventually. You might recall that when we first met the fucking nerd boy, he had stayed behind in Vault to seek out the shaman's rod that his master, a merchant by the name of Hammett, had left behind, and went to the city of thieves in Lumpa to seek refuge. Along our journey, we met up with a woman by the name of Master Hama, who is another Jupiter adept like Ivan, who has both the power to read minds and see the future. She seems to know Ivan somehow, but doesn't go into detail about it, nor does Ivan wish to press the subject. She gives us the most useful ability in the game reveal, and shortly after we return to Calais, Ivan's hometown. We had the opportunity to talk to Lady Leanna, who, alongside Hamet, acted as Ivan's foster parents. After the events in Tolby, you finally have everything you need to go back to Lumpa and rescue Hamet, who has been kept hostage for ransom. After doing so, we can finally paint the full picture of Ivan's backstory. A long time ago, a young Master Hamet was journeying the world searching for new business opportunities when he came across the continent of Ateka, far to the southwestern reaches of the world. When he arrived there, he was stricken by mortal danger when some adepts came and saved his life. Before sending him back on his way, the adepts gave Hamet 5 things: some money, some business advice, the shaman's rod, our young fuckboy Ivan, and a prophecy. They predicted that one day, 3 years after a terrible storm that only hits the village of Vale, Ivan will be involved in a great destiny, and the shaman's rod will be exchanged for something of extreme importance. Fearing that his time was running out, Hamet took Ivan to the closest village to Vale as possible, handed him the shaman's rod, and left so that he may find his destiny on his own. However, what Hamet did not foresee is getting his ass kidnapped by thieves. After rescuing him, he gives us the last important details of this story, that the adept who saved his life was a Jupiter adept, and that we must take the shaman's rod to the continent of Hesperia, located in the northwestern reaches of the world. What this all means will sure to become relevant in the second part, but for now I think it's time to get to the endgame of this journey. And here is where I think I'll be cutting in with that bigger spoiler warning. If you want to give yourselves the opportunity to finally play these fantastic games, hopefully I've given you enough to go on to want to try them out. But with that being said, we're gonna start talking about the endgame for the first half of our adventure. So if you don't want to hear any of that mess, go ahead and skip to the timestamp here. All good? Cool? Awesome. When we reach the southern continent of Gondowan, we meet up with Iodum, a retainer of Lord Babby, who will be accompanying us for the smaller portion of our journey. Before reaching Lalivero, we must pass through the Sahola Desert, which has been plaguing the soldiers of Tolby, who have been tasked with escorting Sheba back to her hometown, now that the Colosso has ended and Babby has no need for the Lighthouse with us in tow. However, the desert has been cursed with monsters, and along their mission, the soldiers have lost track of the young girl. In addition, they let it slip out that they have identified Felix's party somewhere along the way. Interesting stuff, them being able to make it through thanks to their synergy, so we quickly follow in pursuit. We are able to make it through the desert, but we are unable to find Sheba anywhere throughout. When we do make it out, we finally make it to Venus Lighthouse, but not before following a trail of corpses that Felix and friends have left in their wake. Unfortunately, our time here is cut short, as there's no real way to make it to the top from this point, but we do hear about an underground passage leading into the ruins of Babby's Lighthouse, so off to Lalivero we go. When we arrive, the city is an absolute ruin. The bodies of soldiers lay left and right, and the morale has since long waned away. Babby's influence has destroyed the city long before Felix came along. In this land, Sheba is revered as a child of the gods. One day, she simply fell out of the sky and landed without any wounds and has lived here since. There's gotta be a joke somewhere here about her not getting hurt when she fell from heaven, but I can't think of it right now. With her powers, she managed to provide for the city until Babby came along, kidnapped her, and held her hostage for the sake of his lighthouse. It really gets you starting to wonder if we are really helping out the good guys here. This whole journey, we've kinda just been doing what we do for the sake of other people's ambitions, or just fixing our own messes that we made. It's not something that's really brought up much until this point, where we can see the full extent of the power of those we're helping. Everyone here despises Babby, and the attacks from Felix and his gang are only furthering the blame upon him, it seems, when we find out that Sheba has been spotted alongside them, again being held hostage. Remember that Kraden is also one of the members of their group, a well-known figure from Tolby, so I can see why the blame is put upon them for this. When we go to investigate Babby's lighthouse, we find our underground passage and must split ways with Iodum, as only adepts are allowed past this point. At the end is our shortcut into the upper reaches of Venus Lighthouse, our final dungeon for the game, and boy, what a place to end it on. It doesn't hold back on requiring to use all of the skills that you've learned along the way. It really puts you to the test before your final confrontation with— Whoa, hold up, this is my favorite part of the song. Once we reach the top, we finally get our long-awaited reunion with Felix, but not before interrupting what seems to be a lover's quarrel within the gang. Felix is concerned about Shiba, as it seems that Satoros and Minardi promised that she would be kept out of harm's way, yet they insist on not releasing her back to her home, even after coming all this way. Felix pieces it together that they seem to need Shiba to get into Jupiter Lighthouse, as Shiba herself is a Jupiter adept, an element that their party seems to be missing as of yet. While he does understand the need of the girl, Felix, showing an ounce of mercy, requests to take her back to their ship. They don't know exactly what will happen when the lighthouse gets lit, and he claims he simply doesn't want Shiba to get hurt during the ensuing chaos. Satoros and Minardi get insulted by this claim, thinking that Felix doesn't trust them. They quickly see through his ruse, explaining that if they let Felix and Shiba go, Felix is just going to set her free. A nice attempt, Felix, but you forgot one important thing. You're a liability! They begin to challenge Felix, one, because they still need Shiba, of course, but two, because they have no longer any need for him. They've reached the top of the lighthouse of which Felix's element is aligned, and it's at this point we decide to butt in and try to fend them off before lighting the beacon. Felix says he doesn't need our help, and he still intends on lighting the beacons regardless of our interference, but Mia states that our motive as of now is to get Shiba out of here safely, to which Satoros hatches an idea. Satoros claims that they need the Shaman's Rod, as they've also been made aware of the prophecy which Hammett has been given. He says that the rod is connected with gaining access to Jupiter Lighthouse, and after demanding Shiba peer into our minds to see if we have it, he offers us a trade. The Shaman's Rod in exchange for Shiba's safety. Oh, I'll give you a rod if you know what I mean. Felix is ordered to grab the rod to ensure his loyalty to their cause, and we comply, but before Shiba can even walk an inch, the curtain is revealed. All that Satoros promised was her safety, and it wouldn't be a very safe thing to do to let her return to La Libero alone. Ivan seems to think that we would be the ones to return her home safely, but clearly we're not going to be part of the equation anymore. Right, this is it. This is our big climactic rematch with Thing 1 and Thing 2. No holding back, no lighthouse bullshit to get in our way. This fight is to the bitter end. Don't pull any punches here, because they're just as deadly as the first time. You gotta be careful here, as both of them put up a hell of a fight. Satoros has strong attacks and lots of health, while Minardi has powerful spells that can down the entire party if left unchecked, as well as some nasty status moves. Just keep a close eye on your health meter, and you should be able to win through attrition alone, but be careful with which Jin you use, as the fight is far from over when they go down. While we win this fight, Felix is true to his word, and he has no intention of giving up Shiba or the last elemental star, for whatever reasons he has, and if that means fighting us, he's willing to do so. During that conversation, Satoros and Minardi get back up, barely being able to stand, but still manage to cast the Venus Star into the lighthouse. The light of Venus Lighthouse is able to restore their health, as Earth and Fire share a symbiotic relationship. A really nice attention to detail, actually, as that holds true when assigning your classes in the game. Felix is ordered to escape, as they're not sure whether they'll be making it out of this fight alive. They do a motherfucking fusion dance and show us the true power of the Northern Fire Clan. The Doom Dragon is our final challenge, and like before, it's not holding anything back, so neither should you. Set yourself up wrong, and it's easily capable of one-shotting multiple party members with some of its attacks. But just like everything else in this game, buff up your defenses, heal when you need to, and you should be able to make it out alive. Throw everything you have at this motherfucker, all of your summons, use all of those healing items, because this is gonna be it. And once it's finally over, Satoros and Minardi finally lay defeated, and fall into the pit of the lighthouse, never to be seen again. But before we can celebrate, it seems that Felix has not yet made his escape, the fucking idiot. He explains one last time that he still holds the Jupiter Star and that he must complete his mission, even if we did defeat Satoros and Minardi, even if it means us continuing to pursue him like we haven't already heard him say before. Before he can escape, however, the lighthouse is torn asunder so that the beacon can take its place. Felix and Shiba lose their balance, and she starts to slip off the edge. You had one damn job, Felix. One job! The foundations of the lighthouse begin to crumble. Venus Lighthouse, being the earth element, begins to cause massive earthquakes all over the region. Shiba thanks Felix one last time for keeping her safe, and lets go, falling into the abyss. But Felix refuses to let that happen, and jumps down after her.
Well, congratulations, Isaac! You've beaten the game! You get one line of dialogue, so use it wisely.
And here we are, defeated in the end after all of that. Felix and Shiba have seemingly perished, the lighthouse remains lit, Jenna, Kraden, and Alex are nowhere to be seen, and we have still not yet recovered the last elemental star. We make our escape and reconvene back in La Libero, where we are led to believe that the peninsula known as Adijima, where Felix was ordered to escape to, was cut off during the earthquake and has been thrust into the ocean. Being that it is our only lead as to the location of Jenna and the still open possibility that Felix and Shiba may have escaped with their lives, heading out into the open blue becomes our next objective. Iodum sends us off by holding up his end of Babby's deal and gives us the Lemurian ship that he escaped with those many years ago. With our powers as adepts, we are able to helm this legendary ship and set off on the next part of our adventure. Well, shit. Unfortunately for us, this is where our story ends for now, but before we conclude, after the credits we do get a small teaser as to the fate of Felix, Jenna, Shiba, Kraden, and Alex. It seems that they have survived the events at Venus Lighthouse, and are stranded on the floating island of Adijima. As to where their mission takes them next, we'll just have to wait and find out. Yeah, if it wasn't obvious by now, this game is fucking massive, so much so that they couldn't fit all of it into one little GBA cart. But if you thought that this game was big, you haven't seen anything yet. In the year between these two games' releases, they managed to jam-pack the sequel with even more content than the first. Even despite that, the first Golden Sun is such a special piece of the GBA's history. It's really sad to bring up the missed potential with the series not getting any representation in such a long time, but just looking at the massive outcry during the speculation period of Smash Ultimate speaks so much testament to the fanbase that this series has. At the risk of sounding like your run-of-the-mill, entitled, spoiled gamer, I really do hope that this series has a chance to be seen by the public again. I wanted Isaac to be in Smash Bros. So bad, not for the sake of playing as my favorite anime swordsman, but for the slim possibility that interest in a series might pick up again, and maybe we'd get another game sometime. I don't even think he'd really make that great a fit as a fighter. You've already got most of his role fit by somebody like Robin. I don't know if it's Nintendo's interference preventing them, or if Camelot as a company simply doesn't believe that they have what it takes to make another successful RPG after the failure that is Dark Dawn. It might be a combination of both, but I'm hoping that maybe if fans reach out and are loud enough, somebody might listen. We might never get another Golden Sun game per se, not at least without making a successful remake that gets new players invested in the world or something like that. But anything that gives this company the chance to create something beautiful is something I'd be very interested in seeing. In the meantime, you've got people like me here, keeping the dream alive. If you've been playing along, be sure to hold on to your completed save file, as it's going to come in handy for things to come. We still have so much ground to cover, and I can't wait to talk about it all, so I hope you join me again when we cover Golden Sun: The Lost Age. Ooh, lordy, big thanks to everybody for joining me in this journey, but boy howdy am I relieved to finally be done. I just want to say right out of the gate that covering The Lost Age is not going to be the next video on this channel. I've got at least one other project I want to get done before then, hopefully this time before the game completely dies to irrelevancy. Don't worry though, as I've already started production on the next Golden Sun video. I just want to take a small break from these longer projects. I do want to sincerely apologize for how long this one took to come out. It's pretty obvious from the script that it was supposed to be out like a month ago. My real life kind of just kicked me in the ass for the last 2 months. I had to move into a new apartment, and then I got sick for 2 weeks, then Thanksgiving happened, and I just had to keep pushing this one back, not to mention a few cases of burnout along the way. In any case, it's out, and I really hope you enjoyed all the hard work I put into this one. The game in this video really means a lot to me on a personal level, so if you did have a good time, please share it wherever you can. I really hope this channel can start growing so that I can cover more obscure games and topics like this one that mean so much to me. If you want to keep updated on my future videos, please do follow me on Twitter. I try to post progress updates at least once a week now, as well as hints for future videos and other dumb bullshit. I think that about covers it, but just in case, I hope you guys all enjoy your holidays, have a fantastic rest of the year, and I'll see you in the next one.